Tonight's topic is how to stay married. For those of you who joined us recently, we began a mini-series about zugiyut, about soulmates, about relationships. We started off with a series of 70 most difficult questions in Judaism, and one of them is, what is the neshama? What is the soul? The various components of the soul. We went on to explain the strength of the soul, his ability to exercise free will, as opposed to predestination, one's mazal. And we spoke a little bit about the mazalot, the various signs as well. Tonight's topic, how to stay married, follows the other topics that we've covered relating to the soulmate. What is a soulmate? How to identify one's soulmate? Why there's so many singles? Some advice for those who are still single on how to accelerate the process and how to find their soulmate. And tonight is more geared towards those who are married. Nevertheless, it is good advice even for those who are not married yet. The earlier you know this information, the more helpful it will be. It is best to know this in advance than to finding it out the hard way. The reason I called the topic how to stay married is because it's very easy, relatively easier to get married. You find somebody, you take a chance. It works out, great. It doesn't work out, you have a choice. It's trickier to stay married. In other words, it requires knowing certain things. And I very, very much believe that in the majority of cases, not in all, the majority of cases, if people do the right things, they will be able to stay married. What I'm going to do differently this time, besides giving you just general advice and ideas about what marriage is and the importance of staying together, is towards the end, I'm going to give you some astrological advice. Just briefly, 5-10 minutes of what to do if you're stuck with a difficult mate. Depending on their element, their sign, what is the best advice in dealing with him or her in resolving the situation, the problem. So let's start. When I got married, I didn't know everything. I was not told, I was not taught what to do, what not to do. I learned it on my own, and I'm still learning after 23 years. What I did know is that I wanted to succeed. Marriage, to me, meant something that I take seriously, something that I wanted to last, something that I would like it to succeed. After all, hopefully, this will be an individual who you will be able to share your thoughts with, your feelings. You'll be able to work together with on solving problems, on raising children, and accomplishing a great deal. It doesn't always work out like that. In other words, even though we have certain expectations and we hope, we don't necessarily get 100% of what we want. But if you get 90%, you should be happy. So I want to prepare you for that you're not necessarily going to get 100% of what your dreams were. Not in the individual themselves that you were looking for, the type of individual, and also not in the results of the combination of the two. Because when you combine two people together, it produces certain things. Certain results come out of this combination. And those results may be not exactly what you've expected. But as long as the two are willing to work on their problems, they have common goals, common ideas, and they have the desire to succeed, then they have the basic ingredients for a potentially good marriage. So the first step in succeeding in a marriage is to know what the mission is. What is the purpose of the marriage? Why am I getting married? The Torah tells us, the Torah reveals to us that lo tov heyot ha'adam levado. The idea of marriage is because it's not a good idea to be alone, to be by yourself. Why not? Because you will never be 100% of what you can be by being by yourself. As we explained in the past, in talking about soulmates, a true soulmate complements one and allows one to reach his maximum potential. If you are married to the real soulmate, not only hopefully will you have a good marriage, an easy relationship, but it will also allow you to reach your potential. And that potential is different in every human being. depending on what your mission in life is. She or he will be an ezer kenegdo. One will be an ezer. An ezer means a true help. When it's not a help, sometimes it works just the opposite. It opposes you. And when it opposes you, whether it is in your job, in your ideas, in what you want to accomplish, then you have a big war ahead of you. And a lot of people give up very quickly if they see a war coming. Sometimes this war can be resolved peacefully. Many battles have been resolved. And what is required for that, even though I'm going to reserve it for the end, I'll let you know now, is sometimes it requires some compromise. So you don't have continuous wars. But that is sometimes, unfortunately, the situation that one sees early on in his marriage, that he's headed towards a difficult challenge. And what do you do now? So, B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully we'll try to cover a little bit of what can be done. I've covered a lot of it already in another series called Interpersonal Relationships. And for those who want to have a lot more information as to what can be done, how to deal with a situation that is about to collapse, divorce is coming, can we still save the marriage? There's a lot of information on tape that you're welcome to hear for those who are interested. Interpersonal relationships. So the Torah says, Lo tov hiyot adam levado. That means that one should get married. It's a mitzvah. It's a good thing to get married, not only to have children, not only so she can cook for you. That is not the purpose of marriage. It's just a byproduct. It just happens to be that he or she will help you with everyday life. But the idea behind the help, as the Rabbi tells in the Gemara, is because Kol ha-sharui belo isha, whoever is without a wife, sharui belo choma, belo bracha, belo shalom. Without a woman, without a wife, and it works the other way around too, without a husband, one has no wall, a wall of protection against sin. That's called choma. Belo bracha, without blessing, because the wife brings blessing into the home. Even though you earn a living and you have parnasah and you're wealthy on your own, the baracha comes from one's wife. That is what the rabbis tell us. One has to be careful on how he treats his wife, because he may be ruining his parnasah. The source of the blessing is due to the wife. So one's mazal will strengthen when he gets married, automatically. Therefore, he should not despair and not think negatively that, how can I support her? I don't have a parnasah. As long as you're physically able to work and you want to work and you don't want to rely on welfare, right? Then hopefully your wife, your spouse, will bring in the mazal. The mazal will strengthen. You don't have to have any fears about things working out as far as parnasah is concerned, livelihood. The beracha comes with the marriage. The beracha comes with the children. Every child, as soon as they're born, their mazal, their support is born with them. You don't have to worry, how am I going to feed an extra mouth? And unfortunately, and very tragically, many parents who did not have this strength in their emunah and bitachon aborted the child because they were afraid that that was somehow going to make it difficult. Those who were somewhat better than them, what did they do instead of aborting? They gave up the child to an adopting service. And it's hard to imagine how a woman or man can give up a child, but people have done all sorts of things. It's a lack of emunah and bitachon. And it's shalom. The third element of having a spouse is that it gives you shalom. Shalom means peace of mind. You're calm, you're not running around, you have more structure in your life. Yeshuv Hadat, exactly. Hopefully you will be calmer. You have a sense of belonging. That is what you're supposed to have when you get married, that you belong to him, you belong to her, you're one unit, and that gives you a certain tranquility, a certain peace of mind. So in a true zivug, assuming that one has found his true soulmate, the two will complement each other. The two will be filling in where the other one is lacking. Whatever area you're lacking in, your spouse, your soulmate will fill in. That is one of the indications that you find that you have actually found the right person, that you feel that you complete each other, that you work well together. And that is a beautiful feeling that you should be able to sense. If you're fair and honest and you admit it, after a few years you can tell that you actually are one unit. You actually belong with each other. Each one is really a help to the other. Another important idea to keep in mind when getting married is that even though the Torah says that it's an ezer kenegdo, that one is a help for the other, in order to be a help, there has to be a nechonut, there has to be willingness on one's part to give of himself to the other. Number one. Number two, hopefully, the two of you have the same aspirations and you're headed in the same direction. And number three, you don't have any unreasonable expectations. Okay? Again, number one, a willingness to give of yourself, a willingness, in other words, to help. Number two, the same similar direction or aspiration. And number three, no unreasonable expectations. The reason why I put these three together is because even though you've agreed to get married, right, even though you understand that the mission of marriage is to become one and to maximize your potential, we're going to be talking about succeeding in this mission, right? It's not just getting together, making the move, putting a ring on her finger, going underneath the chuppah, saying, okay, I do, yes, I agree. We want to succeed, right? So in order for this to work out well, you need to be willing to actually go ahead with this. Mentally, you've made up your mind, yes, I'm actually going to share my life with someone else. I'm going to give to that person. Hopefully, we're going to be on the same track. And I'm not going to have any unreasonable expectations. All of this is very, very important. Now, in order for there to be willingness, for me to actually want to share my life with somebody else, I need to remember at all times, that what marriage is really all about is about giving. The human being comes into this world, he's a taker, he's a receiver. He needs to be trained, to be taught, to get used to the idea of giving to others. And marriage is a vehicle that allows us to do that. In Hebrew, ahava, love is called ahava because it's from the root hav, to give to the other. Not to want something from myself, like most people interpret love. I love it because I want it, because I want to have it. In Judaism, love means to want to give something to somebody else. I love them so much, I want to give to them. I want to love them, not love myself. So the nesu'im, the marriage relationship, is a maftach, is a key for accomplishing this act of giving. So in order for there to be that willingness to share my life with someone else, I need to keep this in mind, that marriage is about giving. That is what needs to be accomplished. Now, what will this do for me if I very much want to give to somebody else and that's all I care about and that's always on my mind? What this will do for me is that automatically, in my mind, if I see a fault in that individual who I married, I'm not going to oppose them, going to get upset at them. I'm going to say, hey, I'm giving to them. Maybe, perhaps, I'm the one that married them so I can help them with that fault. See what I mean? If you develop in your mind the idea that marriage is about giving and about sharing, then as soon as you see a problem, a difficulty, a fault, you're not going to run away from it. You're not going to criticize it. You're not going to necessarily look down at him or her. You say, wait a minute, okay, this is a fault, this is a weakness. Perhaps I can help. And that is a big difference between a successful marriage and a disastrous relationship, where the two really want to help each other. They recognize the problems, and they say, okay, how are we going to deal with it? How are we going to confront it? So if you start out knowing that this is all about giving to the other, about sharing, then it will be easier to deal with a fault. I will be helpful instead of negative. I will not oppose. I will do whatever I can to help. In English, there's a saying, if you want a friend, be a friend. You want somebody to be your friend, then you have to be a friend to them. You have to show you care about them. That is how friendships are formed. Even though in marriage we may want to give, we also want to receive in return. So it's not fair for me to just say it's all about giving. We all want to be loved too. Right? We want to receive. It's not fair to just say it's only about giving. So that's why I said that keep in mind the saying, if you want a friend, be a friend. If you want it to work out that you will receive, then you have to think also about being a friend. You can't think about just receiving. It is okay to want to receive. It's only normal for every human being to want love, to want to be loved. But if you want it, don't think just about that. Be a friend, show that you're kind, and hopefully the other one will reciprocate. That's the same idea in friendships, it's the same idea in marriages, in any relationship. You want a friend and you have to be a friend. It doesn't always mean that that's what's going to happen. The other person could be very stubborn, very uncooperative. You could have problems, but your only chances of it working out is that you demonstrate that you are sincere, that this is what you want for yourself. Well, what you want for yourself, give it to the other. As the rabbis tell us on the words, "Ve'afta l'recha kamocha," you should love your friend as yourself. Whatever you don't want done to the other individual, whatever you don't want done to yourself, don't do it to the other individual. You don't want people to hurt you, then don't hurt them. The same is true the other way around. You can interpret it the other way. Whatever you want to be done to you, do unto others. So in this way, hopefully, it will be reciprocated. That is the way it works. Be a good person, be a kind person, and even though I've heard it many times from many couples, I'm the one that's doing everything, I'm the one that's kind, I'm the one that's giving and helping, and the other one is not doing anything. If you were to stop doing that, then for sure it would end up in a disaster. Continue to be good, kind, positive, and giving, because that is the only chance that the other one will answer in kind. If you don't do it at all, if you stop it, then the chances are almost zero. The other person has to learn, obviously, to reciprocate. They may have a problem. They were not taught. They don't understand the language on how you're communicating your love and your caring. Could be there's a misunderstanding. So don't stop doing it altogether. No, perhaps if I stop, he's going to learn he's going to learn his lesson. I've been so nice to him for the past 5 years. I always buy him or her, I've heard it from men and women, I always buy them or buy her a birthday gift, and she never buys me. Or I always buy him, he never buys me. I'm not going to do it this year. You think that's going to help? You think you're going to teach, that's the way you teach a lesson? That just spoils it. You've just gone down one rung in the ladder. Instead of building the relationship, you've just weakened it. You have to be very careful from these creative ideas of how we're going to teach him a lesson. He or she may not know to do the right thing. So be careful with these teaching him or her a lesson. We talked about the act of giving. So the act of giving is central to marriage. That is what marriage is all about. We have to have it in us. But what do we give? What's the most important thing you can give the other one? It's not a kiss. It's not a hug, even though those are very important too. Do you know what's the most important thing you can give your spouse? Respect. Respect. I think everybody will agree with this. Over the years, some people, depending on their sign, don't care about the hugs. Don't bother me now with a hug. I'm not in the mood. And if you kiss them, they do this. Yeah, some people. Some, not all. Some people welcome it. Some people say, give me on both cheeks. Right, there's all kinds. But that's not important because some people know how to kiss and hug very well, but they're terrible in some other way. Is it helpful? So the intimacy is very important in a relationship. Intimacy is very, very important. But respect is more important than everything else. You have to show that you respect the other one. You don't look down at them. And yelling and criticizing is a form of disrespect. And that is what little by little destroys or weakens a relationship. Inadvertently sometimes. That was not your intention, but it happens over time. You just get tired of each other. All you hear from each other are yelling and criticism. These are not the building blocks of a relationship. This will not make it succeed. This will weaken it. Respect. Respect the other one even though they're different than you, even though they don't agree with you, even though they did not prepare the dinner you wanted, not your favorite dish, even though they invited somebody that you weren't in the mood to have them over, even though they forgot about your anniversary, whatever it is, even though they promised and they didn't keep a word. Okay? Be careful. Don't disrespect them because of that. Find out, investigate, talk, and perhaps you can see what the problem really is. Perhaps they didn't mean it the way you thought they did. Let's say you have a good relationship. Everything is going well. Does that mean you have to do nothing? Some people get along very well together. They love each other, they respect each other, everything is fine. Even if everything is going well and smooth, you still have to invest in a relationship. Just like in a garden. You have a beautiful garden, you spend thousands of dollars. Sometimes things go wrong. In a good relationship, in a beautiful garden, you know what can go wrong in a beautiful garden? The bird of paradise was planted in the shade side, and it should be on the sunny side. Do you know what a bird of paradise? It's a beautiful, it needs a lot of sun. Some plants need more shade, some need more sun, some need more water, some need less water. Some needs fertilizing. And what if the sprinkler is broken and it hasn't been watered for 2 weeks and you didn't realize it? You're going to blame your gardener? Blame yourself. You want to enjoy your garden, you invested in it, you take care of it. And if something is wrong, you go figure out what's wrong and fix it. Move things around if you have to. So even if there's a successful relationship, even if everything was going well, you still have to invest, you still have to take care of it. You still have to make sure everything is just right. And I'm going to give you a little bit of advice as to what to do or not to do in order to maintain a good relationship, good. Because even good relationships can, chas v'shalom, God forbid, go sour. And that is the most tragic of all. When people are not for each other, they end up divorcing, and we accept it, that there was no way for them to work it out, to reconcile their differences. That happens. That is why there's something called a divorce for those situations. But it should be the last resort. But there are sometimes good relationships that are ruined because the man was an alcoholic, a drug addict, a womanizer, or she was lazy, spent more time with her parents than with him and with the kids, does not take care of the children. You can have good chemistry between a husband and wife, but after a while the husband says, this is not what I wanted for me or for my children. Or she says, this is not what I wanted. And if it's many years down the road, it may be very difficult to repair. It's still possible, but it's difficult. So you want to make sure that if something has good potential, that you keep it that way, that it doesn't go sour, chas v'shalom. So what do? How do you go about making sure that everything is right? Well, first of all, it's a good idea to have a rabbi, a selech harab. Selech harab means you should always have somebody to turn to consult with in case you have a question. The husband might say, this is the halakha, and the woman might say, no, this is the halakha. This is what I was taught at home. This is what I saw my parents. No, this is what I saw. What do? There is a story like that. Does everybody here know what a kugel is? Okay. It's an Ashkenaz dish. The husband grew up in Poland, and the woman grew up in Hungary. And he was used to a peppery kugel. And she was used to a sweeter kugel. And he insisted on having his kind of kugel. And she insisted on having her kind of kugel. That is one version of the story. The other version is that he insisted on having the kugel at the end of the meal, and she at the beginning of the meal. Anyway, they couldn't get along. Each one wanted to have a different kind of kugel or to have it at a different time of the meal. So what do? And they were both stubborn about it. They wouldn't give in. They went to the rabbi, and the rabbi said, from now on, lady, you're going to make 2 kugels. The regular one that your husband likes, and then you're going to have a shalom bayit kugel. The second kugel will be called the shalom bayit kugel, the kugel of peace and harmony. So from now on, every Shabbat, they had 2 kugels. one that the husband liked at the time that he wanted, and one that the wife wanted at the time that she wanted. You see? They took care of the problem. 2 kugels. The second one was called Shalom Bayit, peace, the kugel of peace. So you go to a rabbi. If you have a rabbi, then things will work out, hopefully, if you listen to him. Sometimes people, when they're inside, they have problems. They can't see how to get out of their trouble. So you need an outsider who's not biased, who can be more objective and help you. A little bit of advice for those who are having difficulties. Very important to have good communication. Men and women speak different languages. They have different needs, different interests. So as it is, they're very different. Even if they're both from the same background. They're both Hungarian, both Persian, both Moroccan. The fact that one is a man and one is a woman is already a difference, a big difference. So communication is extremely important. You sit down and you talk. Number 2, both should always remember, especially the men, you're both equal. You both may not be identical, but you're both equal. Did you see the difference? Did you hear the difference? There's a difference between being equal and being identical. Men and women will never be identical, but they need to be equal. One should not feel that he's more important and has more say than the other. Number 3, the Torah tells us that when you get married, v'davak b'ishto. V'davak b'ishto means that you're going into this marriage to become one. You're no longer going to be 2. A lot of singles who get married when they're older, in their late 30s, for example, early 40s, they've already gotten used to living a life on their own. They have set ways. And now they have to change to accommodate the other person. Is very hard for them. Getting married earlier on in life is definitely easier, right? Because you grow together. So the Torah tells us you can still do it. As long as you remember that the idea is, the goal is, v'davak b'ishto, become one. You're going to become one unit. You're going to care about each other more than anybody else in the world. But in order to accomplish that, you know what's necessary? Ve'azav et aviv et imo. You have to let go of your parents' home. And that is very difficult for some people, for some cultures, to let go of the father and mother, to not visit them 2 times every day, as they're used to not talk to them on the phone every single day. Yes, that's what's necessary. I'm sorry to tell you, but that is exactly what's necessary. It does not mean for you to be disrespectful of them. One has to be respectful of his parents every day of his life and of their life. But when it comes to marriage, you are beginning a new home. That home takes priority over everything else in the world. And the relationship between a husband and wife is even more important than the children, than one's own children. Some women forget about that. They're so crazy about their children that they forget and ignore about their husbands. The husband's needs. The husband and wife are number 1. The children are number 2. And the parents or in-laws are number 3. And friends are number 4. And neighbors, number 5. Whatever. Anyway, parents are out of the picture. And many times, they are the ones that spoil the relationship. And if it is the parents that were spoiling the relationship, move to a different city. And if that's what's necessary and one of them is not ready to do it, then you know that this has no hope. Because sometimes the parents of one or the 2 of them will actually spoil the relationship. One has to be prepared and make a decision. Yes, this means so much to me, this marriage to this person, that everything else is secondary. We don't mean secondary that it's less important, that it's not as... It's just not the same priority. Life is all about priorities. You can't show the same love or same attention to 2 people at the same time. It's impossible. There's a conflict. So therefore you have to make a decision. Which one is more important? Which one is a priority? Parents are very important, but they're not on the same level of priority as husband and wife relationship. That's just a fact. And for those who don't believe it or have a hard time with it, that's why the Torah records it. The Torah records it. Ve'azav v'taviv v'timo, you will let go of your parents' home. V'davak v'ishton, you will become attached, glued to your spouse, if possible, as much as possible. Become one. Another piece of advice, when you talk to each other, don't shout, don't raise your voice. It doesn't help. It just, after a while, it brings in a lot of bitterness to the relationship when people raise their voice. Try to limit raising your voice. If they can't hear you from the living room, from the bedroom, wherever you are, then go to the next room and talk. Don't yell. It doesn't sit well. And eventually, if this happens a lot over and over again, it creates bitterness in the relationship. So speak calmly. And sometimes it's better not to say anything, to keep quiet, keep your mouth shut. That's sometimes the best solution for a situation when somebody's very upset. And if you say the wrong word, it makes it even worse. So sometimes it's better just to keep quiet, not to say anything. Another problem that occurs from time to time is that we want the other person to understand exactly what our intentions are. With the blink of an eye, they should be able to figure this out. There are very few people in this world that can know exactly what their spouse wants with the blink of an eye. Just by looking at them, there's a telepathy between them that even before they say anything, the other one exactly knows what the other one feels or wants or needs. Most people don't have that. Some people do. That's called telepathy. And those couples who are able to communicate telepathically are very fortunate.
Stay away from telepathy.
Yeah. Some have it and some don't. So therefore, if they don't have it, you need to express yourself better. You need to communicate better and not expect them to figure it out. What, didn't you know this on your own? Don't you know me by now? Oh, we've only been married 35 years. I'll give you an example, right? No. Okay? This happens quite a bit, and one has to react in a very normal way, in a calm way. But what strategy do you use? One way that I found that it works is to change subjects. If it is a particular topic that's making everybody upset, everybody is arguing or bickering about something that they're not all in agreement about, that they're upset about, just change subjects. Oh, by the way, where did you get that sweater? It usually helps. After a while, in my home, they figured it out already. Why are you changing subjects? I still do it, and at the end, I succeed. I've at least succeeded in bringing down the tension level, moving away from that subject that has been making everybody so upset. You got to use it. That, there was this kind of a strategy. Another one that I use very successfully, I go over to the one who's the most tense and I tickle them. Yeah, force them to laugh. It works. It immediately brings down the tension. What do you do? You see, I even got you to laugh. Anyway, sometimes you got to use humor. That's what it is. You got to do that because otherwise, it's terrible. The tense, the moment or the tension in the home, the feelings, the bitterness, the aggravation, all that, it spoils, it really spoils everything. And sometimes brothers and sisters, after many years, yes. Fine? Yeah. Another idea that people forget that is very easy and cheap is to give compliments. Ze lo le kesef. It doesn't cost money to give a compliment. You look good, you look nice, you look like $1 million. Even though you're exaggerating a little bit, the rabbis tell us mutar. It's okay, it's permissible to exaggerate a little bit because your goal is shalom bayit. So therefore, every morning the Zohar says when you see your wife, you're supposed to tell her, you're the most beautiful woman in the world. Every other woman is like a monkey compared to you. Yeah.
You say it every day.
Yeah. If you said it, he's right.
She might believe you.
If you said he's right. If you said it every day, it may not work. You got to think of something else. Yeah. Anyway, it's true. A compliment goes a long way, and it's cheap. And even though they say words are cheap, you really got to back up your words with action too. But it's better than nothing, So keep up the good compliments. Don't be cheap about compliments. Another idea that is extremely helpful is to, as we call it in Hebrew, leshader simcha, to communicate happiness, to have a good attitude, we would say in English, about everything. And how are you supposed to have a good attitude? Rabbis tell us always look at the cup, how it's half full and not half empty, right? That's how they say. In other words, focus on the good, not on the bad. For example, people that come complain to me, my wife is like this, like this, like this. I asked him, tell me, is she at least a good cook? He says, oh, she's the best cook. How does she take care of the children? She's fine. So I say, look at the good, right? Focus on the good. Same thing with the husband. Is he a good father? Does he make a living? Is he kind? Does he's charitable? Yes, he does these things very well. Fine, then focus on the good. Try to have a positive attitude about everything. How nothing is perfect, that no one in this world is perfect, that has no faults. Everybody has some weakness and everybody has some strength. So focus on the strength, on the positive, instead of the negative. Another idea that people forget about is that every relationship, regardless of how good or bad it is, what they all have in common is that people constantly need to work on themselves, on their midot, on their own nature. Because if you don't work on yourself, then there's very little you can offer. In order for the relationship to be like a glue, that everything sticks well together, it is on the assumption that the two people are gentlemen, the two people are good people, are refined. If one is not going to refine his character, then it's not going to work. We always need to work on our midot. Midot meaning our faults, our weaknesses, our character and personality. It does not mean that as soon as we dive into the marriage, we're ready just to embrace every situation. We may react very poorly in some situations if our midot are not right. So when one learns musar regularly, he attends classes, he becomes more educated, he refines his character because he wants to succeed in life. He wants to be a true, observant Jew in every way possible. Then he does his best to educate himself and to work on his midot. And working on one's midot will have a very good effect on one's marriage too, not just on one's relationship with other individuals, on one's marriage. So working on one's midot is something that has to happen all the time throughout one's life. One of my favorite suggestions for those who nevertheless tried everything and are having a hard time. People have hard time for different reasons. Some children are difficult. Sometimes one of the spouse has very tense because of their job. So I'm not going to blame any particular situation. But let's take an example of a situation where the two are really for each other. They know it. But they simply are having a hard time because of some problem. Go away together. Go away for a weekend. I try my best once a year to go as a family, once a year to go just with my wife, and once a year to go by myself to Israel, to recharge my batteries. We all need our time, and it's been working very well. Go away with your wife, go away with your husband once in a while without your cell phone, without your kids, and that's what in-laws are for, taking care of your kids when you have to spend quality time together. And if they don't want to do you the favor, they're terrible. Terrible, because if they're healthy, and I know they want their privacy, but if they want the success of their children's marriage, then they should do it for them. And some friends, of course, are willing to do it too, but if you have 10 kids, it's a little tough. Where are they going to move into? You don't want to split them all over the place. Some people do that. You bring your parents over and let them be in their home. Pay for their tickets if you have to. Let them come and live in your house and take care of them. Now, again, I'm not saying that you should impose on anybody. Especially when kids are very small, it's difficult to do it. Changing diapers, right? You can't expect everybody to do that. So sometimes you just have to wait till the kids grow up a little bit to do that. Or sometimes you go away for a day or two instead of 3-4 days. But you do it. Don't not go because of the children. On the contrary, we all need it. And you'll thank me for it. I remember this. If you go away without the children once or twice a year, you'll come back rejuvenated. You feel like you just had another honeymoon. And I've asked people who are really having a hard time with their spouse, tell me, have you ever gone away together? He says, yes, we've done that. How does it feel when you're by yourself? Oh, great. You see, you like each other. It's just that the kids, raising kids is not easy. It's just because of the bills and our work and our other responsibilities that make it hard for us. So go away without the kids at least once a year for a number of days, and you will see how helpful this will be, because you will be forcing yourself to sit down and talk to each other. There's nobody else there. Go away, by the way, to a quiet place where there's very little action. Don't go touring museums, right? Sit down and enjoy nature, something peaceful. for those of you who are unaware of the secret of the mikveh is something very, very powerful, where a woman goes once a month for a number of years of her life to the mikveh to purify herself from that tumah, from that impurity that comes once a month. And as a result of that tumah, of that impurity, husband and wife cannot have any intimate relationship, any physical contact for 11 or 12 days. That is actually the Torah's prescription for a honeymoon. Because when you come together after separating yourself for 11 or 12 days, you actually feel very good about each other. But don't misunderstand me. During the 11, 12 days, it is actually a big test for the couple to see how they get along without any physical contact. Because sometimes, because there's physical contact, it's just easier to be nice to each other. So the big test is, how do you get along when there's no physical contact? Nevertheless, after you do come back together, after the mikveh, it is a very special feeling. It is something that one should really be careful with for other reasons. It's a very important mitzvah. It is important for the children that are born as a result of a mother going to the mikveh. Mikveh is important for many reasons. But for the husband and wife's marital relationship, for them two, it does really help to keep them together, to keep the glue strong.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
On my website, the Press Phones, there's a whole thing about it. Explains the significance. It also gives you the list of all the mikvahs in the world.
EnglishTorahTapes.com has many, many links, and many lectures, and a lot of valuable information for those of you who have never yet visited the site. I very much highly encourage you to do so. A variety of lectures on almost any topic that you're looking for. Just a couple minutes, we'll talk a little bit about divorce and what to do to avoid divorce. Divorce, as you know, is the last resort. Last resort. When people get divorced, you know what it means? The two of them have failed. I'm being very black and white about it. Divorce means the two have failed. Whereas a good marriage means the two have succeeded. Divorce means there's been a failure. Now, that's terrible. Nobody wants to fail in life. Now, I'm not saying that nobody should ever get divorced. There are situations which are unbearable. As I said in the very beginning, some situations call for a divorce. There's no way out of it. Nevertheless, one should know that if he's going to give or receive a get, basically what he or she is saying is, we have failed. And I don't think anybody wants to feel that way, so you don't want to go through that if at all. You try to avoid it. And one way to avoid it is just to remember that nobody's perfect. And as long as, of course, the two are willing to work on their problem, then it can be avoided. If one or the two of them are not willing to work, there's nothing to talk about. And I told you this once when we were talking about another topic. A true friend is one who knows you with all your faults and still likes you. So if they loved you, they cared about you at the very beginning, then maybe there is something that we can do to restore that faith that there was in each other, that love that existed once upon a time. Maybe there is something that we can do about it. If it never existed, then that's a different problem. But if it did exist, it's possible to restore it. Okay, here's some advice, astrological advice. Real briefly, I'm going to go over with you for the next few minutes a bit of advice that is very, very helpful from a different angle, from astrology. Those who are more interested in getting more information about the signs, I've already spoken about it, but these are just brief advice as to what to do or what not to do, what is important to each of the signs. I'm not going to go through the signs. Instead, what I'm going to do is go through the elements. For those of you who were not here when we discussed elements, listen to this carefully so I don't have to repeat it too many times. There are 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. There are 12 signs, so there are 3 signs in every element. Okay? Hopefully each one of you here knows his sign. The earth element are those who are Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Okay? Remember, if you're Capricorn or Taurus or Virgo, you belong to the earth element. The water element is Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So if you are Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, you are water. Okay? The air element is Libra, Aquarius, Gemini. Okay? So if you are a Libra, an Aquarius, or Gemini, that means you are an air element. Fire element is Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Okay? So if you're an Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius, you belong to the fire element. Okay? We're ready? Now, what's the use of knowing the elements? The more you know yourself, the more you know the other person, the better you will be prepared, hopefully, to deal with their problems, with whatever situation they have. As long as you're willing to do the right thing. I'm assuming that we all want to do the right thing. So this will help you. Knowing yourself, knowing the other person, the willingness to do the right thing, then we'll be okay. Even though all 12 signs are slightly different, even though the 3 in every element are similar, they're still different, I'm going to break it down by element. All those who belong to the earthy element are much more stern, strict. Changes are difficult for them. They're more reserved, they're more quiet, they're more economical, and more stubborn. Just briefly, keep in mind that anybody that has this element. Now, when we talk about an element, we're talking about the dominant element, because everybody may have several elements in his nature. We're talking about the dominant element. If the dominant element is earth, this is what all the earthy elements will have in common. Now, what did I just say? I just said that they're a little bit more stubborn. Changes are difficult for them. I only mentioned a few ideas because we're talking about the areas that are going to be difficult to deal with. So if you say to yourself, why are they giving me such a hard time? Why isn't she ready to make this change? I want to move. They don't move. They like it the way things they are. They don't want to change so easily. They don't want to give something up so easily. You see what I mean? That's the earthy element. The water element is more emotional, more sentimental, more moody, more suspicious, more secretive. Just a few ideas of what the water element is. So expect somebody who's water, very watery, that if you marry them, there's going to be changes in the moods. Very sensitive. That means if you insult them, it's the end of the world. Much more than it's somebody who's not so watery. Okay? So just be aware of that. Fire. Anybody who's the fire element is going to be much more passionate about whatever he believes in. Very active, very impulsive, and very untactful. He'll tell you in your face what he thinks about you. That's the way they are. They're very open, clear. They're not shy. Okay? Anybody who has fire is much more open about what he feels and what he thinks, more aggressive, more assertive, more excited about it. And that's just a fact. Those who are more air are more communicative. They like to talk, they like to communicate, they like to teach. They're more social, they're more friendly, they're more intellectual. They're more changeable too, they're more adaptable, they're more flexible. That's basically the air element, okay? Now, let's break it down to 2. Earth and water, who get along very well, what they need is stability and security. Okay? I'm just trying to break it down. Earth and water, who get along well, what's common between them is they need stability and security. Fire and air need to be independent, and they love their freedom. So if you have a husband, a wife who's very fire, just remember, they will very much value their freedom. Their freedom, their independence. They won't want to stay at home with me. No, I want to go out, right? Just keep that in mind. Anybody that has a preponderance of fire and air in them are going to value and want their freedom and won't want to be told, stay home. They won't want to be limited. What's important to each one of these? What's important to the fire is to know that you appreciate him and that you are a partner in all his aspirations. That you go, in other words, you're in full agreement with what he believes in. Again, fire is what's important to him, that he is appreciated, and that you agree with him. You go along with him. Earth, what's important to earth? Comfort, constancy, and trust. If you break the trust of an earth sign, if you lose it, if you've just lost the trust, it's lost, it's gone forever. very difficult to make up. If you hurt somebody who is of the earthy sign, that's the end of the relationship. Very difficult to bring back. You go to a marriage counselor, you go to rabbis. If they did something wrong to you, something terrible, that's it. There's no possibility. It's very difficult to bring back that trust. It's gone forever. And it has a little bit to do with their need for security, stability, and trust. If it's lacking for them, there's nothing worth pursuing in that relationship. What's important to Air is that you're both on the same wavelength, good communication, and intellectual stimulation. That is what's important to the air signs. Water needs emotional support, understanding, and warmth. These are just a few ideas of what each one of these elements needs. How do we make them feel good, each one of the four? The fire element needs encouragement and needs to be stimulated. Anybody who has fire, what they need more than anything else is encouragement. Earth, what they need the most is a good hug, physical support. Money is also very helpful. They need security. So Earth is looking for that security, whether it's physical, that you hold on to them, that you show that you care about them, and financial security. What the air needs is to talk to them. They want to be talked to. They want to communicate. That's more important than anything else. And the water, you need to use your emotions and your feelings to communicate with them. They want to see that you care. They want to feel it, not just see it. How do we resolve problems using the elements? With the fire element, the way to resolve the problem with him is to put everything on the table, to be very open with him. Don't assume anything with fire. You have to tell him straight in his face, this is what I'm unhappy about. This is what's the problem. This is what's wrong. If you're not clear, you're not going to get anywhere. So with fire, resolving a problem with them, put everything on the table and be very clear. With earth, if there is a problem, one way to resolve problems with earth is each one has to recognize what their role is. Each one has to learn to share. Each one has to learn to give up a little bit and not to resist to make a change. Sharing. Earth needs to learn to share, to divide up the roles, to recognize that this is mine and this is yours. This is for you to do. This is for me to do. So there's no conflict in the roles of what the husband does and what the wife does. In air, the air's way of solving problems is through compromise and negotiation. Talk. Okay, how are we going to solve this? Air, the way you're going to solve problems with air is only through compromise and talking, negotiating about the problem. With water, if there's ever a problem, the best solution with water is to seek forgiveness, to basically applicate them, to make them feel good, to make them feel, wanted and cared. What are the things that each one needs to work on? The fire needs to work on the way he conducts himself. They're very aggressive and impulsive sometimes. They have to change the way they do things. The earth needs to somehow learn to detach himself from that which he's too attached to. They have a hard time getting rid of things. They store things away in the attic for a long time, earth. So they need to learn to detach themselves from those things that they're very attached to. They need to learn a little bit more flexibility. If they have a problem with being generous, they have to learn to give, to share with others their money. The air has to have the ability to change his mind. They sometimes think they know better. Everybody else is wrong. They have to learn to be able to change their ideas, that they're not always right. And water has to work on his feelings. Sometimes his feelings mislead him. Sometimes his feelings are telling him one thing and it's not so. Because of his feelings, he does not progress. He does not move on in life. He gets stuck in his depression, in his mood, in his thinking. And it's all because of his wrong feelings. So he has to work on his feelings. And last but not least, some advice for those who are married to a fire sign. If you're married to a fire sign, they can be very hot-headed, get angry very often. Just let them calm down, because they calm down after 5 minutes. They've become very upset, but they'll calm down. So there's no use of arguing with them. With the air, since they think they're right, tell them, yes, you're right. That's the best way. Why argue with them if they always think they may be right? The air element is very communicative, very intellectual, very brainy. And sometimes it's just better to avoid an argument with them. You know what? You're right. Okay, you're right. Fine. Let's go on to something else. Why argue with them? With the earth, they're very stubborn. Because they're very stubborn, one way to deal with an earth element is tell them, if you really love me, you'll do this for me. Now you've found a soft spot in them. So with the stubbornness, with the earth element stubbornness, that's the only way you can achieve it. If they really care about you, they'll do it for you. Nothing can take away the stubbornness unless it's love. You see, they really care for you, they really want you, they really care. That's their soft spot. Otherwise, you won't convince them, you won't move them. And with water, the one who's so sensitive, what do you do with him? You shower him with affection. You shower him with love and with sympathy. That's the only way that you can calm him down. That's the only way you can help them. There's nothing else you can do. What, are you going to yell at them? You're going to close the door on them? You're going to run away? You haven't solved the problem. You just run away from the problem. That's what a lot of people end up doing. They run away from the problem instead of dealing with it. I shared with you just a couple ideas that really help, only because the elements act in a certain way. Each one really acts in a certain way, and it has nothing to do with being evil or being against you. Sometimes it's just people are being themselves. And we have to understand that people are just what they are. And if we would recognize this and we would be prepared to deal with it, we would be more successful, not only in solving problems, but hopefully in avoiding problems. Just like to end with a very important note that many people are unaware, that even if you have all the money in the world, and you have 26 children, and you have a lot of real estate, and you have a good reputation and a good name, a successful businessman, but you have a poor marriage, then you have nothing. Even if you don't have too many children, you don't have too much money, you don't even own your own home, but you have a good marriage, then you have everything. A good marriage is the most important investment you'll ever make. And if you succeed on finding your soulmate and preserving your relationship with them, then you've succeeded in the most important mission of all life, is to become one with your spouse. And that is what Hashem wants. Hashem wants to be a partner in such a home where the two care for each other. Because if a husband and wife care for each other, you know what this means? That we have just planted the seed that Bezat Hashem eventually will flower and will affect more people and more families and more Jews and more people will care for each other, want to help each other, and Mashiach will come. Instead of having all this hatred, this sinat hinam, this baseless hatred, all this mahloket, all these arguments, all this separation, right? This is actually a reflection of what's going on in people's own home, is what's happening in the outside. If outside there's so much sinah, maybe in one's home there's sinah too. The way to begin is in one's home, on one's Shabbat table, to care about each other, to be respectful of each other, to want to help each other. This is how we plant the seeds. This is how we begin to form a good relationship. It is within the means of every human being to be what we call in Yiddish a mensch. You know what a mensch is? A decent human being. And therefore, even if you're stuck with somebody you don't like so much, somebody that is very different from you, but if the two of you are a mensch, good people, then you will be able to tolerate each other. You will be able to deal with the problems. You'll be able to ignore or overlook certain faults. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of strength, but more than anything else, it takes recognizing what the purpose of life is, what the purpose of this mission is. Money isn't everything, right? Life is too short to argue about all the silly things that people argue about. Then why not make the best of it? And that is what I want to wish all of you, whether you're single or married, make the best of whatever you have. Bezat Hashem, you will succeed.